So in this section, we'll look at what to do if you don't want to use a lookup table, especially if you have a large body of text. Interestingly, there's a simple mathematical function that helps us to achieve Caesar cipher without using a lookup table. And that is through the use of the modulo function. The modulo function is a very simple function. Essentially, what you do is you carry out a division operation, and whatever you get as the remainder is your answer. So if you say 8 mod 5 now, what you would have is 1 remainder 3, and then that remainder, which is 3, is the modulus of the function. So in that vein, can you try out these exercises? You try and divide and then find the remainder of each of them. So you can pause the video now and then try and solve these problems. Okay, so if you did that, if you pause the video, you should get these answers. And if you do not get the answer, check again and see where you made your mistake. Okay, so moving on, how do we use this modulo function to implement Caesar cipher? Very simple. To implement Caesar cipher, all we have to do is to use a simple formula. Now, that formula requires us to assign each letter to an index starting from 0, to know the number of letters in our alphabet. In our own case, this is 26. Next, we just compute the following calculation. We take the plain letter index and then we add the key to it. And remember that our secret key in this case is what? 3. Then we take the modulus of the total number of letters. So let's continue. To encrypt the letter A, using this formula, we know that the index of A is 0. We know that the key is what? 3. And we know that the total number of letters is 26. So all we have to do is to carry out the calculation 0 plus 3 mod 26, and that gives us 3. So what we now do next is to go to the index, look at the the letter that is in index 3, and that is D. And we know that D is going to be the answer. You can pause the video briefly to make sure that you understand this particular process. Now, let us try the letter T. In the same way, we carry out the same kind of formula calculation, but in this case, T is what? 19. Our key is still 3, and the number of letters is still 26. So when we carry out this calculation, it gives us the answer 22. So we just go back to our index, and then we know that it is going the letter T is going to be encoded as W. Now, as a self-test, can you try and do the remaining letters yourself? You can pause the video and try it out. Next, you would ask yourself, what about decryption? How do we decrypt? Well, decryption is done in a similar way, but the formula is different. Decryption involves using this formula that says cipher letter minus key modulus total number of letters. So if we enter in the values 3 minus 3 mod 26, that will give us 0, and we know that our answer is going to be letter A. You can pause the video to make sure that this concept is clear. And to do the decryption of letter W, it's going to be the same thing. Cipher letter index minus key mod total number of letters. Try and calculate and see if you get the same results. Now, the modular method is very efficient, it scales easily, and it's very flexible. These are the reasons why you might prefer to use the modular method instead of the lookup table. But there are some problems with Caesar cipher. One, the limited key space problem. You have only 25 possible shifts. Second, there's a lack of complexity. That is, you just shift the letters without actually changing the actual meanings of the letters or altering the patterns. And finally, it is vulnerable to frequency analysis. Frequency analysis occurs because certain vowels like A, E, I, O, U have a certain number of known frequencies. And this means that if, for instance, letter A occurs, let's say 40% of the time, then anything you encode that appears like 40% of the time can be deduced to be letter A. And that means that it will be easily vulnerable to frequency analysis attacks. So these are the three key reasons why Caesar cipher is not used commonly in modern day applications, but it is a very fundamental introduction to the field of cryptography. Thank you very much.